Hello, folks. You're all very welcome to Celtic AM. This is a virtual one because, like so many of you, I'm in lockdown. I'm in a 5K zone, and I have been for a couple of months. I'm missing Glasgow shocking, and it's been a year. Well, it's actually been over a year since we sat in Malone's, eating bacon rolls, drinking pints, listening to a few tunes, and talking Celtic. Now, if you've been to Celtic AM before, you'll know the score. But if you haven't, here's a little introduction. Celtic AM started in 2016. A handful of people turned up the first morning in Malone's. And I think it was Jeanette Finley was the first guest. John Fallon was there. Average Joe Miller was there. I can't remember the fourth guest on the day. But it grew from there on. We've done most 3 o'clock Saturday, Sunday games. And we had a couple of crackers. The day before the Rangers game, we had one on the roof garden, or the beer garden, a Jimmy Johnson special. And his wife Agnes stole the show with stories of Jimmy off the park. Those stories of false teeth and going missing and everything. And George McCluskey and the Jimmy Johnson Academy boys and a few others filled us in on Jimmy's great contribution to Celtic. And, you know, I'm sure there was a few tears that day, but there was most of them were tears of joy listening about the great man. And then we never thought when we started off that we would get invited to do it somewhere else. We got invited to Philadelphia, thanks to the Playboys. And we had a brilliant time over there. One of my favourite ones was when the association, the Irish Supporters Association, invited us to City West, before one of the big dinners. And I got the chance to interview Danny McGrain that day, and that was brilliant to interview such a legend. And we also done one night in Bangkok and a Celtic AM in Pattaya in Thailand. So they're highlights. And they're actually the last two we done. The last one in Malone's was the St Mirren game. And none of us knew what was going to happen to us for the past year when we left Celtic Park that day. Happy that we got a victory, heading for the 9. It's been a turbulent season. We didn't win the league, but we have a chance to win the Scottish Cup, and we kick off against Falkirk. So today on the show, I'll be joined by Eddie Toner. Eddie will be well known to most Celtic fans, but if you don't know Eddie, he's the former secretary of the Celtic Supporters Association. He picked up the award when we got the UEFA award or the FIFA award, whatever it was, or both. We got both for our behaviour in Seville. The only fans ever to get the Fair Play award. So fair play to us. So Eddie will be joining me. And also joining me will be Rudi Vata. Rudi, of course, played in the 1995 Scottish Cup final. And he'll share his memories of that day, the semi-final, and indeed 2 great Celts that were involved that day, Paul McStay and manager Tommy Burns. But before then, I think we should get a history lesson on Celtic's favourite competition from the man who wrote the book on the Scottish Cup and Celtic in the Scottish Cup, Mr. David Potter.
The Scottish Cup is the oldest trophy in the world. It's not the oldest competition. The English Cup was started in 1872. The Scottish Cup started in 1873, first final played in 1874. But the trophy that is in the Hampden Museum is the original trophy that was presented in 1874. And it has been presented every year to whoever wins the cup, exclusively, more or less, Celtic in recent years, thank heavens. Although I don't honestly know how they did it on last December when we won the cup, as you remember, and they couldn't substitute the trophy with a replica because you just saw the trophy on the podium, and Scott Brown went to collect it. So I don't really know what happened with the trophy in 2020, but normally what happens is it is presented to the winning captain. The winning captain then disappears downstairs, gives it an attendant who puts it back into the museum, and then it is he's given a replica. and the replica is used to be, shown to people and taken to the stadium and whatnot. But the original trophy is meant to stay in the Hampden Museum simply because it is too old and it is too fragile. However, it started in 1874, and Celtic managed to get the final in their first year of existence. In 1889, they were defeated by Third Lanark after a game which the first game was abandoned because of snow, and then Third Lanark won the replay, and Celtic eventually won the cup in 1892, and significantly they beat Queen's Park in the final. Now, that is important for several reasons, because Queen's Park were the middle-class establishment team of Scotland, of Glasgow, and Celtic, of course, were the forerunners of professionalism, but also the team that represented the Irish immigrants. And the fact that Celtic won the Scottish Cup, and they emphasise the word Scottish Cup, is very, very significant in my view, because, of course, it emphasises the fact that we are the Irish immigrants, but we're now Scottish, and we've now conquered Scotland, as it were. And it was for the same reason, of course, that they were very keen to build the huge stadium at Celtic Park so that it could house the Scotland versus England games, as they did in 1894, 1896. 1898 and 1900. So there's a lot of nuances of history in that. They won the cup in 1892, 2 goals from Sandy McMahon, 2 from Johnny Campbell, and an own goal. They won it again in 1899, 1900, and then in 1904 we come to the great Jimmy Quinn Cup final. Now, there have been several great Scottish Cup finals, and this one, I think, was probably one of the best, because Celtic were 2-0 down early in the game to Rangers at the New Hampden Park, which had just been opened the previous October, and Rangers were 2-0 up. But Jimmy Quinn pulled 2 back, brought Celtic back on equal terms by half-time, and then in the second half, he went on to score the winner. And it was a great occasion for that, and that was the one which immortalised Jimmy Quinn. 1907, 1908, 1911, 1912, they also won the Scottish Cup. And then we come to 1914. Now, 1914 is a very significant year in world history, as we know. In the history of the Scottish Cup, of course, it was between Celtic and Hibs in 1914, referred to quite openly as the Irish Cup final. Apparently, before the game in the first Cup final, the whole crowd sang, "God save Ireland, cry your heroes," and so on. Whatever, I don't know the words myself, but that first game ended in a rather disappointing 0-0 draw. Hibs, in fact, really should have won it. But on the Thursday night, the replay, Celtic just quite simply took over. It was one of Patsy Gallagher's best ever games, and Johnny Browning scored 2, Sniper McCall scored another 2, and it was 4-1 for Celtic at full time. And newspaper reports tell us about the march back, as they called it, how the supporters got themselves into a crowd and just marched back with their banners, singing their songs all the way back from the west end of Glasgow to the east end of Glasgow. What a sight that must have been. And it was just as well, of course, that nobody knew what was going to be coming along in August of 1914. But the point was, of course, as well, that in 1914, Irish Home Rule was very much a political football in 1914. It was, we know what happened in 1916 because Home Rule wasn't granted in 1914, and it was very much, but don't anybody try and tell me that sport and politics don't or shouldn't mix. They are very much involved with each other, in my view. However, once the war was over, Celtic won the Scottish Cup again in 1923, a goal by Joe Cassidy, also against Hibs. And then in 1925, we come to the great game which involved Patsy Gallagher. Now, 1-0 down to Dundee late in the game, Dundee's goal scored incidentally by David McLean, who had played for Celtic in 1908 and 1909, and whom I once met, but that's another story. And then Patsy Gallagher scored his equaliser. Now, contemporary accounts all say that Patsy got the ball wedged between his legs, somersaulted back into the net, and that was how he scored. Some people thought that should be a foul for obstruction. I hope not. I don't think so. My father, funnily enough, who was at that game, always said about that particular goal that he didn't see clearly what happened. He just saw Patsy Gallagher being disentangled from the back of the net by the Dundee players and the Celtic players. He did, however, my father did have a very, very clear view of the winning goal in 1925, which was scored by who else but Jimmy McGrory. It was a free kick taken by Gene McFarlane, who famously pulled up his stockings before he took the free kick, sent over a lovely lob, and my father remembers seeing that there was a line of defenders, and a line of Celtic players, and he just saw one person with a green and white leaning forwards, it were, from the line and scoring the goal. And he always said a green and white figure catapulted forth to score the goal which won the cup for Celtic. And that was, I think, the 11th time that Celtic won the Scottish Cup. Fast forward to 1931, and we find another great Jimmy McGrory occasion. This time down 2-0 to the very, very good Motherwell side. And this time they really did look down and out. But I think it was Charlie Napier this time took a free kick, and McGrory was able to score off the free kick. And then with the time almost up, and as everybody was looking at the big clock on the Hampden stand, and everybody was saying, well, it could have been well for well. But at that point, Bertie Thompson on the right wing beat a man and crossed the ball. And Jimmy McGrory went up for it. Jimmy McGrory actually missed it, but it hit the head of Alan Craig, Motherwell's centre half, and was deflected into the goal for an own goal. And my father recalled the time, many years later, he would recall it, of how Craig lay on the ground, thumping the ground because he'd given away the goal. It almost goes without saying that the replay was won 4-2 by Celtic. Celtic won again in 1933, 1937, and then from 1937 to 1951, which was a long time, although the Second World War got in the way right enough. It was a long time to go without winning the Scottish Cup, but it was John McPhail who scored the goal in 1951. He also won it in 1954, and then we come to the first Scottish Cup final that I can honestly say that I remember. This was 1965. Once again, a classic Celtic Scottish Cup final. 1-0 down, Bertie Auld equalised. A ball from Charlie Gallagher hit the bar, went way up in the air, came down, Bertie Auld 1-1. Then Fairman scored again just before half-time. Not long after half-time, a fine move between Auld and Lennox. And Lennox passed to Auld. Auld scored 2-2. For a long time, it looked as if it was going to be a replay. John Fallon had one brilliant save from Alex Edwards. And then 9 minutes to go. Lennox took the corner kick. Sent the corner kick across. Up goes Billy McNeill and heads Celtic to glory. Again, the funny thing is that I have no clear recollection of that goal. I was away on the other terracing, away at the gangway number 24 or 25, I forget which one it was, but I didn't see clearly, and I remember thinking that it might have been Gemmell who scored, who had the same colour of hair from a distance as Billy McNeill, but I do remember my father saying, Billy McNeill, Billy McNeill, Billy McNeill, and of course, the remaining 9 minutes were nothing short of agony as we waited for referee Hugh Phillips to blow the final whistle. Because, of course, it had been the first time that Celtic had won the Scottish Cup since 1954, which was 11 years ago. And these 11 years had been pretty horrendous. We had lost a cup final to Clyde, we had lost one to Hearts, we'd lost one to Dunfermline, to Jock Steen's Dunfermline, and we'd lost one to Rangers in 1963. These 11 years were not good ones for Celtic in the Scottish Cup. And then, of course, things changed. 1967, Willie Wallace scored 2. 1969, Celtic 4, Rangers 0. Very, very famous victory in its own right. 1971, Celtic 2, Rangers 1 after a replay. And then 1972, we come to Dixie Deans' hat-trick. Now, Dixie Deans scored the hat-trick that day, putting him in the same bracket as Jimmy Quinn. And frankly, you can't say any more than that. If somebody's compared with Jimmy Quinn, well, that sort of settles it all. I remember talking to Dixie about it, and I said to him something about you're in the same bracket as Jimmy Quinn, and he says, aye, but I did it twice. I scored a hat-trick twice in a cup final. Well, technically he's correct, but the other one was actually a League Cup final. But still, not taking anything away from Dixie. It was a great time. It was a great day for Dixie, and a great day that was. Celtic beating Hibs 6-2. Games against Hibs in the early 70s and the late 60s were usually great games, full of loads of goals, and usually Celtic won. And we won it also in 1974-75, in 1977, Andy Lynch's penalty. Some of you remember Andy Lynch's penalty. 1980, it was George McCluskey who scored, and that was the day of the rather disgraceful. And then one of my favourites is also 1985, the Scottish Cup final of 1985, when again we looked down 1-0 to a very stuffy Dundee United team, who were managed, of course, by Jim McLean, who had laid the emphasis very much on grim defending, and they were good at it. But then we got a free kick from David Provan and a wonderful header from Frank McGarvey. 3 years later, we did the same. It was McAvenny who scored. 1989, we had Joe Miller. And then in 1995, it was Pierre Van Hooijdonk who scored the one goal against Airdrie in 1995, and my, how we needed that victory. We were again on our knees in 1995. We just lost the League Cup final to Raith Rovers, of all people, some 6 months previously, and we were on our knees. And from then on, of course, the Scottish Cup and Celtic were back on speaking terms. The remaining 10 that they won between 1995 and 2020, I'm sure most of you will remember them. Of these ones, I think my favourite would have to be 2017, because I do remember very much the goal that Tom Rogic scored. Apparently, there was a thunderstorm going on in the ground and outside the ground at that time, and nobody really noticed. But I'm told by those who were around that there was a thunderstorm actually happening, and that was a great one. 2007, incidentally, that was the time when the goal that won the cup was scored by the very unlikely person called Jean-Joël Perrier-Doumbé. It was against Dunfermline. It was frankly a dreadful game of football. And I was glad that scored, obviously, and they did win the cup. But I think Dunfermline got relegated that year, and you saw why Dunfermline got relegated that year. But Celtic weren't really an awful lot better. And another of my favourites in recent years is, of course, 2018, where the weather was lovely, and funnily enough, it was the same day as the royal wedding. Yes, the royal wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle was held on that day. Now, fancy people like us deciding to go to a Scottish Cup final instead of watching the royal wedding. and with two lovely goals, two very similar goals actually, they were scored by Callum McGregor and Olivier Ncham. And of course, 2020, well, that was a tight afternoon. That was a tight afternoon. Part of me was just a wee bit sorry for Hearts that day. Me being sorry for Hearts doesn't happen very often, I would have to say, but I thought they fought back very well, and I honestly thought Celtic were going to blow it. But anyway, that is the Scottish Cup. 40 times we've won the Scottish Cup. Rangers won it 33 times. After that, third in the list of Scottish Cup winners. Not a lot of people could guess this one, but it was actually Queen's Park who come third with 10 victories. Queen's Park winning in the 1870s and 1880s. After that, I think it's Hearts with 8, and they're not going to win it this year, and Aberdeen with 7. Everybody else, there's the occasional, I think, what's good about the Scottish Cup and the Scottish League Cup, I think, is it gives other teams the chance to win something. The chances of either Celtic or Rangers not winning the Scottish League are actually, I'll rephrase that. What I'm trying to say is that if Celtic don't win the Scottish League, we know who will. Whereas in the Scottish Cup and the Scottish League Cup, there's always a chance that somebody else could do it. Like, for example, St Johnstone this year. And there's always that chance that this could happen in the Scottish Cup of 2021. And I am really looking forward to seeing how the Scottish Cup will develop. I will be very disappointed if Celtic don't win their 41st Scottish Cup. And from what I saw of the game on Sunday between Celtic and Rangers at Parkhead, I think Celtic were the better team on Sunday. And I think that Celtic on their day are still a better team than Rangers. So I am still fairly confident about the Scottish Cup on May the 22nd.
David Potter, historian, Celtic fan, author. What can I say? Absolutely brilliant. Folks, check out his book, Scottish Cup, Celtic's favourite trophy. You get it on Amazon, Celtic Bookstore, Celtic Superstore, whatever. If you enjoyed his little introduction there into the Scottish Cup, you're going to love the book. I've read it. It's brilliant. And I know a lot more about the Scottish Cup now than I did. David's wrote, I think, 40 books, maybe over 30 on Celtic. So I think he knows a little bit. David's been on the podcast as well. So he's done 2 episodes with us. So if you check out the podcast on CelticFanzine.com, it's also available across all platforms if you want to hear more from David. He also does a weekend column, the long read in the Fanzine, where he normally picks a player and does a good long read. So it's a nice cup of coffee or a pint, especially in lockdown times. He's also in the Fanzine every month. And while I'm talking about the Fanzine, I'll do a little bit of promotion. Issue 114, we've been going for 20 years, and you can buy that as well on CelticFanzine.com, or you can subscribe. It's the only thing you have to pay for, is that subscription. It's free to subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's free to subscribe to the podcast. And it's free. All the articles are free on the website. And so if you want to support us, you can buy the Fanzine, subscribe, or buy a T-shirt or a bit of a merchandise there on the shop. So thanks very much for that. And thanks very much for all the support over the past 12 months, because it's been tough without ground sales to keep the print edition going. Digital edition, we can keep going. Don't have the cost of print. Anyone that's involved in print knows how expensive it's got. But we couldn't do it without you and the sponsors and the patrons and the supporters clubs. So thanks very much. And talking about supporters clubs, we got talking to a few of our friends who we've often bumped into Malone's. But because this is virtual and I've got a head like something from a Doctor Who episode, we've asked a few of them to give us their favourite Scottish Cup moments. So here goes.
Hi, my name's Stephen McLeish. I'm from Broomhouse in Glasgow. I go in the Johnny Gallagher Celtic Supporters Club from the Celtic Club in London Road. My favourite Scottish Cup moment, I never thought I would say it was better than the McAvenny centenary final, but I've got to say Tom Rogic against Aberdeen had me sitting in my seat greeting like a big baby, so that's the one. Hail, hail.
How you doing? This is Charles Levin of the Pat Levin, Cock number 1 Celtic Supporters Club, 1988. The oldest and the original club in Cork City. Scottish Cup finals to me bring back a lot of memories, 2 in particular. One would have been my first one in 1989 against the Mob, where Joe Miller scored a cracking goal in a beautiful sunny day. But my most favourite would have been the 2004 Scottish Cup final, when the team had most of my favourite players. Henrik Larsson scored a double, Stalin Petrov scored one. Also on that team on that day would have been Alan Thompson, Neil Lennon, Chris Sutton, just to name a few. What a day. Scottish Cup finals are really special to us.
Name is Mark McCabe from Finglas, living in Glasgow, member of St Margaret's CSE, the league and all over the world. Very, very proud member. Favourite Scottish Cup moment has to be Big Tom Ruggage against Aberdeen at Hampden. Last minute winner, absolutely sensational, and can't wait to get back to them days. Keep safe. God bless. Bye-bye.
My name's Jeanette Finlay. I live in Glasgow and I'm a member of the Denison #1 Celtic Supporters Club. I have a huge number of really good Scottish Cup final memories, but probably my best ones are from when I was very much younger, and we used to always end up in the Cladder Club on the south side after the games, where we would sort of horrify all the very nicely dressed elderly people by our terrible dancing, but it was great and I loved it.
Hello, Tony Ratton here in Sunderland. Sunderland's Celtic Supporters Club. Cup memories, so many. But Hibs, when we beat them 3-0 to clinch the treble, Martin O'Neill's first season stands out.
How you doing? I'm Kieran Davenport. For many years I've travelled on the Lomond CSC bus and from Dumbarton. I now travel games independently as I've moved away. My favourite Scottish Cup moment would have to be 1995 with Hoydonk scoring that header against the Ardrionians. It's the first proper cup final I remember us winning, and it's just always stuck in my head. A close second would be Rogic against Aberdeen as well, as it was just unreal.
Gus MacDonald here, formerly of Coolfoot William, now living in Drogheda, travelling with, for the games anyway that I get to, with the St Margaret's Celtic Supporters Club. I used to be with Fort William #1. My favourite Scottish Cup moment was, actually there's two, it was the late winner in the centenary, just amazing, in the old Celtic end at Hampden. And also at Hampden, showing Maggie Thatcher the red card. Money hoops.
My name's Paddy McManaman. I grew up in Belfast. I lived in Donegal for many years and now domiciled in Galway. In over 50 years travelling, I've never been a member of a supporters club. My first memory is the cup final of 71 when we beat Rangers 2-1 at Hampden in front of 100,000. A young Lou McCarry scored first and then a Harry Hood penalty sealed the victory. Afterwards, we were attacked by angry bears going up Mount Florida, but it didn't stop the celebrations that night. Another great memory is the Centenary Cup final in '88, when in front of Maggie and 80,000, we defeated Dundee United 2-1 with 2 goals from Magaveni in the last couple of minutes. Both great memories of the Scottish Cup.
John Mooney here, Port Lager Emeralds. My favourite Scottish Cup moment has to be that day in Hampden in the sun, rain and sleet, with Tom Rodgick creating the bit of history to sort out the invincible season.
How's it going, folks? Paul Murphy, Inchicore Emerald, CSC. Need a haircut. Favourite Scottish Cup moment has to be the Centenary Cup final, 1988. McAvenny's late winner. And then to crown it all, the Iron Maiden, that old bitch, had to present the trophy to Roy Aiken. That's it. Slán.
Hello, René Hansen here. I'm a member of Erin O'Brien Belfast. It's very hard to pick a memory from the Scottish Cup, but I will say for me it's Tom Roche's winning goal in the 92nd minutes against Aberdeen 2016. Hail, hail.
Hi, my name is Tommy Conlon from St Catherine's Celtic Supporters Club in Canada, and my favourite Scottish Cup moment is Frank McAvenny's winner in the 88 centenary season in the cup final. Special goal and a very special season.
My name is Erin, I am from Glasgow, and my favourite Scottish Cup memory has to be back in 2017, 2-1 Aberdeen, rounding off our invincible season with our first of many trebles. Rodgick's last minute winner and a bouncing Hampden will forever live in our memories.
Tom Rodgick's goal, still fresh in the memory. What a day. I wasn't at the 88 Cup final, but if I could climb into a time machine, that would be the one I'd go back to. The celebrations must have been brilliant. I would have been 16 years of age. It was the following February when I went to see Celtic first. And what a night it must have been in the Garbles and the Gallagher. Oh, I would have loved it. 16 years of age, full of cider, having a crack. Oh, what a way to spend your teenage years, celebrating Celtic. Centenary double and sending Maggie Thatcher packing down the road. Well done, boys. And well done to everyone for sharing their memories. Thanks very much. That brought back some great memories. And indeed, my next guest will also bring back some great memories. I'm delighted to have Eddie Toner joining me for a chat. But before I talk to Eddie, I'm going to slip into a little black number. So enjoy the interview. Eddie, welcome to Celtic AM virtual reality, I suppose. It's been over a year since we had a Celtic AM in Glasgow, and over a year since we had one. The last one we done was in Pattaya in Thailand. So that was a bit different with a bit of heat that day.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Look, with a great reaction to you on the podcast. There was some great stories. You know, you never know when you do a podcast where the stories are going to lead to. But it was coming up to the Scottish Cup, and we were a bit nervous, you know, to do the quadruple treble.
Yeah.
And you were going out to get your new outfit for the cup final to sit at home and watch it. And I seen your tweets that morning, Eddie. You were a bit frustrated and not being able to go to Hampden.
Yeah.
It's a special day. It's a special competition. And we kick off now against Falkirk. Now, there's been shocks before. We've been beaten by Clyde. So, you know, but wouldn't it be great to go on a run? Give us something to cheer about in this kind of lockdown reality that we're in. And also, what a way for Scott Brown to be sent off if we can go on a run in this competition.
Yeah, undoubtedly. I mean, everything's got to be geared towards that, but that's all we've got left for this season. You know, I've said it before, nobody's seen this coming, the disaster the season's been so far. And we do have a bit of an opportunity to try and redress the balance in some way by winning the Scottish Cup. And I think it would be quite poignant, you know, maybe an added incentive now with the captain deciding to move on to pastures new. What better way to send him off, as you say, into, you know, second most successful Celtic captain ever, lifting the Scottish Cup for the 5th year in a row. It would be a really fitting tribute. I remember fondly Big Billy's last game for Celtic in the 1975 Cup final against Airdrie. Now, we didn't know before the match that Billy was ready to quit at that time, but it certainly added a certain poignancy and significance to that game. So let's hope we can go on a run and get to the final and give Brownie the send-off he deserves. But, you know, ultimately that'll be down to him and some of his colleagues on the pitch who have maybe let us down this season as well. So we've done everything we can do as fans. There's no doubts about that. It's been frustrating this season. There's been a whole, well, who knows what went wrong. I'm sure there'll be a story to be told. But, you know, really, ultimately it's down to Brownie and the guys in the park. They certainly have the ability to get us there. Maybe this will give some of the players a wee bit added incentive as well, and then maybe get a finger out and deliver us a wee bit of success and something to look forward to for next season.
And the big question is, if we were to get to that final, would there be a new outfit?
Oh, absolutely. There's a new outfit for every cup final. I mean, it's a long-standing tradition. You know, I do think the Scottish Cup is very, very special. There's a real significance for me as a Celtic fan, and probably for thousands of others as well. I mean, you know, I go back to, I was taken to my first cup final in 1969 as a 6-year-old kid by my uncle, and we beat Rangers 4-0 that day. So what a baptism for Scottish Cup finals. And I was brought up in an era then, from then right through to 1975. We were in the cup final every year. So I was 6 right through to I was 12. We just seemed to be in the cup final every year. And won it most years as well. You know, there was the exception with the Aberdeen hiccup in 1970, and I think that other mob beat us with a fluke Dumfries goal in 1973, and they beat us 3-2. But other than that, we just seemed to win the Scottish Cup or get to the Scottish Cup final every year when I was a kid. And that was my formative years. That's what really drew me into Celtic, you know, and the magic of it and stuff like that. So the Scottish Cup finals always has a real significance to me. And I was always aware there was a special sort of, that feeling of a special occasion round about it. You know, even as a kid going to the game and people would have the Scottish Cup final rosette, the old-fashioned rosettes on and with the colours on it and the date and the year of the cup final with a wee sort of a silver cup in the middle and stuff like that. So it just always stood out for me. So in later life, when we started to reach the finals again regularly, I always made a real effort, as I suppose many folk did, to make sure I went out and I bought something obviously green or something green and white, and I just always liked to turn up on cup final days with a new shirt or a new outfit, or whether it be green shoes or green jeans or a green something. It did culminate one year in me making almost a bit of a tit of myself. The 1995 cup final, obviously slap banging the worst decade of our history in terms of success. And we got to the cup final and I was saying, what do I do for this cup final then? It is special. It's going to hopefully deliver Tommy Burns his first trophy as manager. And just the week before it, a friend of mine's dad, Jackie Stewart, who sadly passed away recently. People will be Jackie was a well-known character amongst the Celtic support. He was the MC in the Celtic clubs in Springburn and in the London Road for a while. He was a bit of a singer. He quite often hosted the sing-song in lunches on a Sunday afternoon. If you YouTube him, you'll see him on the video singing the Willie Maley songs and stuff like that, Jackie. But sadly, he passed away just fairly recently there. But he was the father of a very good friend of mine for Easterhouse, Davy. And in 1995 at the time, they used to run a competition in the match day programmes at Celtic Park where they would take a picture of the crowd scene, and they would circle somebody in the crowd, and if you were circled, you won the new kit, the full Celtic kit. So Jackie got circled in the crowd, and he'd seen this picture and said, "Oh, you've won a strip, Jackie. You know, you've won the whole." And Jackie being Jackie, if anybody knows him, he could be a bit grumpy at times. What am I going to do with a strip? I would rather just have the readies, have the cash. You know, a strip's no good to a man of my age. I says, "I'll go and collect it and I'll buy the strip off you." "And what are you going to do with it?" "By this time I'm in my 30s, 35. And I said, "I'll wear it to the cup final." Anyway, what? I says, "I'll wear it to the cup final." So Jackie went and collected his prize, and I think I gave him a tenner for the full kit. So it was a bargain. But I was sort of forced at that point into following through with the commitment. So I turned up that day on a supporters bus with the full kit on, the shirt, the shorts, and the and the socks. And off. I know there's a name for that now. The youngies call them full kit something. That's what I wasn't going to lower myself in this esteemed podcast is saying words like that. But I turned up that day with a full kit on, and it was a great laugh. I remember being in the Celtic end when obviously Big Pierre scored the winner and gone mad, and people ran about who were having a lunch. There was loads of kids with the strips on, and there was this 32-year-old father of two, father of one at that time. The wee man, the second boy, wasn't he? He was only born in '96. Jumping about with the Celtic strip on. And there is a bit of footage. I don't know if you remember the Celtic video of that year, where Tommy brought the bus down through the Gorbals and up through the Gallagate and stuff like that. And there's a bit of footage on it briefly as you see him coming up the Gallagate past the old original Wee Man's pub, which is now demolished in the Gallagate. And you see us all rushing out to meet the bus, and there was me like a sort of a rotund Bobby Murdoch decked out in the full kit, So that was my outfit for that day, for the 1995 Cup final. But since then, as I say, every time we get there, we go, and Jeanette joins in as well. She gets herself a new outfit as well. So we like to get, it's never suit and shirt and tie or anything like that, it's always a nice new casual but aye, it is about just it sets aside that day. It just adds something else to it, as a special day. And I just have fond memories of the Scottish Cup. I just loved it.
It's a lovely tradition. We have Rudi on the show today, and I did say to Rudi about I'd seen footage, going up the Gallagher, up by the wee man's.
Yeah.
And then we spoke about when they arrived back at Celtic Park, and Tommy Bones, a very special. Like Tommy had won everything as a player, very successful player. Love, everyone knows Tommy's story. And I did say to Rudi, I says it must have felt very special for Tommy to come back as a manager at a time when we hadn't won anything in 6 years. And but Rudi was you'll hear it yourself when we chat to him. When he spoke about both Tommy and Paul McStay, he just couldn't say enough good about them. And it was great that day for McStay to sign off with a trophy. That was his last trophy, his medal, for being so loyal to us, and Tommy coming back. It was quite romantic.
Oh, absolutely. And, a real significance there again. They're two guys who were steeped in Celtic, The McStay, I'm glad that Willie's still got a role at Parkhead. I just think there should always be a role for the McStays at Celtic Park. And for Tommy's just Tommy. Tommy's everybody's hero, and quite rightly so. And, the real significance of that day, in terms of success for the club, and Fergus McCann wasn't long in the door, and it set the ball rolling. It still took us another couple of years before we get a real head of steam up, I think. But it certainly set the ball rolling, and it made you think again. Well, the good times are not far. We've suffered a lot, but the good times are not far off, and that was true. But what I really remember about that weekend was that journey in the bus. That would only have ever happened under Tommy Burns. I believe that Tommy made the decision. The fans have been starved of their success. Let's enjoy it, and they chose a deliberate route, because normally the bus would have just headed straight back over to Celtic Park, over the back of Urglen and up into Parkhead. But no, he brought the bus down through the Gorbals and by the Brazenhead and up the Salt Market, past places like the Toll Booth and into the Gallagher and stuff like that, because he knew that's where we would be. He knew that's where the Celtic community congregated and celebrated. And it was fantastic, because we hadn't enjoyed success for years. And for me, that was just a measure of the man as well. It was again as a wee thing back and a nod to the fans for standing by them. And, sadly for Tommy, he wasn't to be around that long, in terms of being the manager and stuff like that. It could have all been different had he been maybe supported a bit more with Fergus on the board at the time. But no. Just two great men, for Rudi Vata to mention that doesn't surprise me, because they're just two absolute legends when it comes to Celtic.
Yeah, and it was a tense final. It won't go down as a classic. Oh. It was a tense final, but I was like, Phil O'Donnell comes off the bench in the replay in the semis. Do you remember that game? Do you remember much about that game?
The semi-final, was the semi-final Motherwell?
No, we played Hibs twice.
Oh, yeah. At Ibrox.
Yes.
Yes.
Because it's really that gives the ball into Phil O'Donnell.
Yes, that's right.
Like, that was kind of a 2-1, you're still an edge.
Yeah.
And a 3-1.
Oh, absolutely.
You're comfortable, Eddie.
In the cup final as well, I think we went there again with no expectation that we were going to cruise it, although we were playing Airdrie, and normally playing Airdrie and you think, this is easy, but it wasn't. It was a tough game that day, and it took a spectacular cross for Tosh McKinley and Big Pierre to get on the end of it, but that was a team that was full of great Celtic men. When you think about Tosh was a great Celtic man. You had Paul McStay, you Phil O'Donnell coming through, and Tommy, Paul McStay, Peter Grant. Peter Grant had a decent game that day as well, maybe one of his best for us. But it was a tough, it was only when the whistle went, it was that sigh of relief, that we'd actually done it and got over the line, and it was a lot of Guinness drunk in the Gallagher that night, that's for sure.
Definitely. Eddie, Peter Grant says after that game that was better than the Centenary double, because it just seemed to be a coming together after all the frustrations of getting rid of the old board, the new board coming in. stadium to be built, you know, the new stadium. And then, you know, we kicked on from then. And
yeah, undoubtedly. I mean, that's what I was saying earlier. But, you know, there was a sense that we were reborn, if you like. You know, the stadium was starting to take shape. You know, we were, you know, guys like Van Hooijdonk, and then, you know, subsequent to that, you had Andy Tom and Di Canio and stuff, you know, and there was a real sense of anticipation and excitement. As I say, it took us another couple of years before we would actually win the title back again, and then, you know, for that into the 2000s, and we really kicked on, and there's been an unprecedented run of success since then, really, for us, you know, in terms of domination in the domestic game. But no, 95 for me was you know, it was a significant thing. You know, we had come through the dark days, and we'd come through the boycotts and the divisions amongst the fans, the divisions at the club. You know, there was a sadness when the old stadium was being torn down for many years, you know, and the loss of the jungle and all that sort of stuff. But also a real sense of anticipation, I think. And I think that cup final was maybe the catalyst for it. So, but Scottish Cup finals are like that, aren't they? You know, they're significant milestones in the club, you know, and again, you know, adds to the sort of a specialness of the occasion of a cup final.
Yeah, you look through that team, like I think with like Packy, Rudi, Big Pierre, the rest of the boys, you know, were born in Scotland, or you know, thereabouts. Maybe one or two not, but if I can just picture that team. I know it was the tricolour for Packy. There was, because I remember looking at a team on the Celtic Wiki or something.
Yeah.
And so yeah, but do you think, you know, with this current squad, we're going into the cup now, hopefully beat Falkirk, hopefully go on a run. Do you think it does? Because we have good players, they just don't, they just didn't play. Do you think that, you know, this brand of, we'll say, player, and those boys back in '95, where you kind of, you know, it was sleeves rolled up. It was, you know, let's do a job here. Whereas, you know, the boys are so used to success, you know, they don't seem as hungry.
There may well be an element of that, but surely, God, if any, you know, if any of them sat and watched or endured the sort of amount of celebrations and over-the-top stuff that we've had to endure in this city in the last couple of weeks, it's been shocking. You know, you'd like to think that some of that's got through them, and there would be, you know, some sort of a professional pride in a sense of, you know, we owe our support something. We need to put this right. We need to give them something to celebrate, and you know, and if that's not an incentive enough for them, then, you know, don't let the arse hit you in the door on the way out would be my phrase. You know, it's you know, it's been tough here the last few weeks. You know, if you speak to anybody in Glasgow, it's been, you know, we'll probably let more fireworks off in this city than there was in Hong Kong or Sydney Harbour at the New Year, you know. But it's been, you know, there's been tons of sectarian graffiti around the city. There's been, you know, it's not even just been a good celebration for that or so. You know, it's been that level of triumphalism that you would always expect from them, and you know, there's been, you know, flagpole, you know, lampposts around draped out and flags and stuff like that, and it's not been pretty. And I would like to think some of the players have at least got a sense of some of that and thought, you know, we need to redress the balance a bit here, you know, enough's enough in terms of having this shoved down our throat, you know, but do they have the hunger for it? Only time will tell. I mean, the fact that we're sitting here saying hopefully we'll beat Falkirk is an indication of how far we've fallen in the last year now. I have no doubt we have a squad of players that are more than capable of brushing anybody aside, but is it about desire? Is it about hungry? Is it about, you know, personal ambition? I think the big factor we had in '95 was Tommy Burns. And the local guys certainly knowing the significance of Tommy and Paul McStay and want to play for him. But at the very least, these guys should be playing for themselves and their own professional pride. And it may well be that some of them are, I would think quite a few of them will be moving on to pastures new. Surely they would want to get the door on a high and not want to be remembered for the team that went for winning 4 trebles in a row to winning nothing. You know?
Yeah. Eddie, see, we're so detached over here. You know, it's different for the boys that live up north. They've had, you know, they will have in Belfast. They will have that triumphalism. They will see Rangers fans celebrate. We don't. You know, even before lockdown, I've always said before, in the building that I have the office, there's only one other Rangers fan in the whole building. And thankfully, they've moved to a different office now. Because I used to give them pelters. But, and I would have deserved to get it back. But yeah, so I know exactly where I come from. I see an average Joe putting on Twitter about the fireworks and that, you know.
Yeah.
Joe's always humorous with his tweets, which is
yeah. I'll let you take it. I can take and understand the level of, you know, celebration and excitement, you know, at winning. They haven't won anything for years. They've suffered, by God, they've suffered at our hands primarily over the years, you know, so they're entitled to go and enjoy that and celebrate that. But some of it's went away over the top, you know, and some of it needn't reined in. And, you know, with arguing, I don't want to get too political because this is a fun programme about, you know, looking forward to what we might achieve in the Scottish Cup. But I think quite a bit of it where, you know, where the establishment have turned a blind eye to some of it as well, when, you know, seem to be different rules, you know, an organised march for Ibrox to George Square to allow them to celebrate, you know, compared to, you know, the day we won the treble, and what the Celtic fans were meant to be at the top of the salt market in Glasgow Cross that day was a line of police with batons drawn and told to go home, you know, basically. Now, that wasn't during the pandemic. That was the police ready to have a go. You know, a legitimate celebration, waiting in an organised, you know, basically an organised tour for the winning bus coming up that route. Now, it did, you know, the crowds that gathered, there might have been some concerns about public safety and maybe it had to be dispersed in some way, but, you know, the fact that we were met with batons drawn and the police ready to wade in, as opposed to, you know, coppers doing dances and taking selfies and marching them all the way through the city in the middle of a pandemic into the centre of the city and allowing them there 5 or 6 hours and then putting out a statement saying, you know, it was policed appropriately and within the terms of what they believe to be people's human rights and all that. Load of bollocks. But it is what it is. You know, we've been suffering that for years, and I don't think it's finished, sadly, because, you know, they'll have their trophy day and they'll have their flag day, and, you know, so we may have a bit more to put up with. But
well, hopefully, we will have plenty to celebrate in the future as well. Eddie, before I let you go, you've climbed into my time machine. I've never climbed into it because all my podcast guests climb into my time machine. But I have, if I could get into the time machine, I would go back to the '88 Cup final, which was probably the first year I started to, you know, show an interest in Celtic. I didn't get over to Glasgow till the February of '89. Just briefly take us back to that.
Incredible, you know. Both the semi-final and the final of the Scottish Cup that year were just incredible, you know, because we had the 2 late goals against Hearts in the semi-final when we thought we were down and out, and I think it was Henry Smith that was in goals for Hearts and dropped the ball and gave us a bit of a lifeline in the semi, and then we stole a winner then. And then to get to the final and win it in the way we did, you know, the '88 final was very reminiscent of the '85 final against Dundee United as well, when we got, you know, went a goal behind, and then there was a fantastic Davy Provan free kick and Frank McGarvey flying header winner. But the centenary season, again, it was almost as if it was meant to be. Scorching, glorious scorching day. We always went to the North Stand in those days in Hampden, you know, the big sort of uncovered terrace. The North enclosure, the North Stand had gone by then, and, you know, so and we always more or less picked our spot. You went in early and got picked our spot, and cracking, blazing hot day, you know, then there was a sense of excitement, anticipation, and then, you know, when a winning goal went in, there's nothing to beat it, you know. It was just magical, absolute bedlam, you know, and it was almost as if it was deemed that we were going to win. double that year. Especially we've got a great history, in landmark years, pulling the goods out of the bag. So, it was fantastic. Probably one of my favourite cup finals, almost trumped by the Tom Rogic goal in the Invincible season as well. If you'd asked me all my favourite cup finals in the past, it would have been 85. Well, the 72 cup final against Hibs, when we beat them 6-1 and Dixie Dean's got a hat-trick, was one that always stood out for me as a young kid. That blew me away, that performance. But then up until then, the 88 cup final was probably always my favourite. And it probably sticks out still as my favourite. But it was nearly usurped by the Aberdeen one. There was a real significance with the Aberdeen one, me being there with all the family, and securing the treble again, and the Invincible stuff, and just the way we won it. There's something special about last-minute winners in cup finals, isn't there? So,
unbelievable.
If you could go back and you had your time machine, I would have no qualms in buying a ticket and going back with you to that day. That's for sure.
You could take me around the Gallagate after the game. I would have been 16, so I may not have been into something like that.
Oh, you're happy they got you in, no bother.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'd just like to leave the viewers with this thought on their head. Eddie Toner, full kit wanker, outside the women's, cheering on Tommy Bones and Rudi Vata, Paul McStay, and all the boys on the bus.
It's on the video. If you get the video and forensically stop it at that point, you'll see some sort of a fairly rotund lunatic jumping up and down. And it's brief. You really need to look for it, but it's there.
And Eddie, when you were on the podcast, you spoke about how you would still love to be a ball boy, but come on, you shouldn't be dressing like that.
Well,
Eddie,
I'm not making any promises, but I would have thought those days would go over. I'm quite happy to go for a nice sort of, it's a new green shirt for every cup final. I don't think I'll go back to those days.
If we win the cup final this year, right, we'll do a sponsorship we'll buy you a kit for the Cana Foundation, and that would be a picture. Eddie, thanks a million. You've been brilliant as always, and hopefully we'll get you on again.
It's a pleasure.
This is our pilot virtual show, but hopefully we will get you live sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Look forward to it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the interview. He's cracker Eddie, isn't he? Some great stories, and born in the shadow of Celtic Park. And I tell you, check out Eddie's podcast if you haven't. It's absolutely brilliant. I look forward to Eddie pulling up in the black cab and picking me up in Glasgow Airport and dropping me off the Ardor Hotel when we get back to normal service in Glasgow. And Celtic will get back to normal service, and the new coal will be pushed off the perch so they can enjoy the fireworks, as Eddie spoke about. But next year we'll bring the fireworks and the bang back. But I think from that interview with Eddie, I think the one thing that will stick in my memory is Eddie in his tutties outside the women's as the Celtic team bus went by, dressed as a full kit wanker. Eddie, it must have been some sight. Anyway, thanks Eddie for joining us. And my next guest, and I will slip back into my little black number again for him, I want to look well for Rudi, is Rudi Vata. 1995 Scottish Cup. Let's hear his memories. Hello, Rudi. You're very welcome to, I suppose, a virtual Celtic AM. We're normally in Malone's for these shows, but because of lockdown, we're still restricted to our own little areas. How have you been?
Yes, hello, Andrew. Been very well, thank you. Everything has been good. We stay safe and healthy, and that's the main thing so far. And we're looking forward to the future because hopefully we get the freedom back soon, and then we get to do the normal things.
Yeah, the vaccine should be a game changer for us. And talking about game changers, Rudi, we're doing a bit of a Scottish Cup episode today because of we kick off against Falkirk in a season where we won't win the league. Now, you won the Scottish Cup. Celtic hadn't won a trophy in 6 years. They hadn't won the league that year, But on the 27th of May 1995, Paul McStay lifted the cup. You played in that game. What are your memories?
Great memories. As you say, the team was very hungry for a trophy. We had been going through difficult spells for so many seasons. We were without any trophy in our cabinet of trophies. So that trophy meant a lot, I think, to the club, to the manager, Tommy Burns, and of course, in my personal point of view, was a great achievement.
Yeah, and a great way to, I suppose, we'd had a couple of barren years. We had the Rate Rovers Cup, League Cup final, and then we go out. Big Pierre scored the goal, but he had to come off early, and it was Willie Falcon to come off. But one thing, like Pierre scored a couple of goals in that run. Willie scored a couple of goals. John Collins scored a penalty against Kilmarnock, and in the semi-finals, Phil O'Donnell scored the third goal when he came off the bench, and it was you that gave in a perfect ball to him.
Yeah, I remember that. We played at Ibrox. We played Hibs twice in the semi-first game, finished nothing each, I think, and then the second game we dominated the game, and Phil came on, and was in my area where I had to take the free kick, and I delivered a very good cross, and he headed a fantastic. He scored a fantastic goal with the header. The timing and the delivery and the execution, I think, was perfect, and was one of the best games I had under the Celtic jersey. That semi-final, the Scottish Cup in 1995 against Hibs. So that game, it's also a game that I will not forget so easy, because I played with I had a lot of energy, and I was hungry, and I really wanted to be in that final. So I am glad I achieved that.
Yeah, and if I look at our route to the final that year, we beat St Mirren 2-0, Meadowbank Thistle 3-0, Kilmarnock 1-0. We had the 0-0 draw with Hibs. We beat them 3-1 in the replay. But in that replay, that was the only goal we conceded. So a solid defence, Rudi, that you played in.
Yeah, it's true. Solid defence. We were getting better and better all the time. The shape of the team was much better, and we were started to believe in ourselves. And Tommy Burns, he brought in his philosophy of football, and the things were getting better and better. And as I say, we were hungry, and we were determined to get to that cup final and win that trophy, because it meant a lot to everybody. So that's the main thing, is the hunger. And when you are so close, and when you play for Celtic, I'm sure that you want to win the trophy, because it's something that you'll have forever.
Yeah, and you mentioned Tommy Bones there, the late great Tommy Bones, and indeed Phil O'Donnell has since passed away since that cup run. In the dressing room after the Hibs game, like, what was it like? Was there great celebrations that, we were getting back to a final?
Fantastic celebration. We were there, and we still had a lot to do, but we were in the final. We learned by the mistakes we done against the Rovers in the League Cup final. So I think even the final maybe was not the best of the games, but we did put in a professional performance. And most important thing at this point was to win the trophy. And Pierre scored a very good goal. It was a fantastic cross delivery from Tosh McKinley, I believe, the left back. And Pierre, he took his chance, and he scored a fantastic header. And those moments, they are stuck with you in your memory, and that's a beauty about football. And those results gives you a platform for the next step, and helps you a lot in your personal self-confidence and self-belief and everything. So it's been a great season for me, and for Celtic also. I believe was a season that when things were starting to pick up and looking forward. Everybody was looking forward to a brighter future, and that was that 1995 Cup final, and that trophy, I think, was the turning point for better things.
It certainly was, and obviously it heralded in Fergus McCann and a new stadium. We stopped the 10 in a row after that then, and then we kicked on. You know, over the last 20 years, we've had huge success. It hasn't been the dream season we expected this year, but there is a chance for a silverware this year with this team. This team is, although they're not firing on all cylinders, when you look through the team, these players are well capable of winning a Scottish Cup.
100%. I believe they are capable of winning the Scottish Cup, and I believe they, in the last two derby games against Rangers, they showed that they performed in a very good manner, and I think they have enough top players in the team to win that trophy. You know, Celtic won so many trophies for the past prior to this season. We won everything. You know, last 4 seasons we won every trophy that was available in Scottish football. You know, and this season now it seems a bit strange because we used to win and we used to get the trophies, and the atmosphere has been brilliant, but like everything in life, I believe that what goes up sometimes has to come down. But again, it's a learning curve, and I am sure that this season was a big season for everybody, and we missed that opportunity to get 10 in a row. I don't know if that will ever happen again in football, but that was a big occasion, big opportunity for the team and for the players and for the fans. Was a big thing, and I'm sure the fans they've been disappointed because they were looking forward for 10 in a row. Everybody was looking forward, and with the way the team performed last season, I think we had enough in our players and coaching staff to win that. I don't know what went wrong. I don't know, but again, what's going is gone. We need to look forward to the future. The club still as big as ever. The trophies are there, but the club and the fans are hungry for more trophies. And with the Scottish Cup available there, I think it's time to kind of start their engine. Everybody needs to think hard and to make sure we get the trophy at Celtic Park at the end of May.
And what a way for Scott Brown to sign off on an amazing career and an amazing medal haul at Celtic.
Yeah, Scott Brown he's done everything for Celtic. He won everything with Celtic, and of course he wants to leave Parkhead with that trophy with that medal in his neck, and I'm sure he's a proud guy, and everybody should appreciate what he's done for the club and what he's done in his football career, and he's been a loyal guy to the club. Great captain, great example, and it's time to go. And yeah, we need to thank him very much, and a big thank from everybody, and for me as well. He was an example, and I don't know how we're going to replace him. But as I say, that's life. Sometimes everything comes to an end, and we need to build up for the future.
Yeah, a born leader, Scott Brown, and you had a great leader in Paul McStay, and indeed the Scottish Cup would be his last piece of silverware as Celtic captain. Can you tell us just a little bit, Paul, and can you any memories of Paul that day after the game?
But you know, Paul he was totally Celtic because Paul's family was Celtic, totally connected to Celtic. Paul was the face of Celtic, in my opinion. You know, he was a great example, a fantastic player, great leader in the dressing room, outside, everywhere, off the park. You know, he he was an example to be taken, not just in Scottish football. In my opinion, in those days there were not too many captains with the personality that Paul McStay had. You know, he was a guy I have a lot of respect. I learned a lot from him, and he showed by his own example in every training session he was at his best. And I haven't seen, I played in so many countries, but I haven't seen so many professional football players like Paul McStay, you know. And above all, he was a gentleman and very well educated guy and a great father and everything.
A great example to young players.
100%. 100%. He was a great example to young players.
And there's sorry, Rudi, one more. Just when I look back on footage of that Scottish Cup final, the team bus going up through the Gallagate and up by the Weebands bar and up to the stadium and all the fans. And when Tommy gets off the bus, you know, a fan grabs him and he's kissing his head. And Tommy was like Paul. He was Celtic through and through. And it must have meant such a great deal for him, you know, to come back to the club as manager after being a player. And he'd a lot of success as a player. But that, you know, he must have thought this is my greatest moment to give this day and celebration to the fans.
I think Tommy was people's man. You know, he was also, again, was a fantastic combination. Tommy and Paul, they played together. They achieved things together. They had good and bad times together. They were friends, and again, was a fantastic atmosphere, fantastic feelings. You can imagine the way Tommy Burns was feeling winning the trophy as a manager of Celtic. Of course, he achieved a lot of things as a player, but winning it was a real thing. It was a real thing. It was pure, and you experience that, and that, as I said, it remains with you forever, because that's where you see the real Celtic, the real feeling, the real Celtic life and Celtic family.
Yeah, with the Scottish Cup now kicking off, as I said, we've a long way to go. Falkirk first, and then hopefully we'll get that win, and there'll be no big shock for us in the cup. But it's been great to talk, Rudi. Hopefully we'll speak again as we go on this cup run, hopefully. And what a way to end this season for all of us sitting at home, maybe watching Celtic lift another cup. So as I said, Rudi, thank you very much for your time and chatting to us.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Andrew. You take care.
Thank you very much to Rudi for joining us. That's only a snippet of Rudi Vata's life. I've been lucky enough to interview loads and loads of Celtic players. I kicked off, the first interview I ever done was with Tommy Gemmell in the back of a shop in Newry back in 2001. And since then, as I said, I've been lucky to interview so many. Billy McNeil, Charlie Gallagher, Danny McGrain, and I know I'm name dropping, but I've been so lucky. Started off interviewing for the Fanzine, then Celtic AM, and now the podcast. And it's great to get an insight. But of all the people I've interviewed, Rudi Vata's story is the most unique. Political asylum from communism to Dublin, to meeting Liam Brady, to speaking Italian to him, which was taught by a priest who had spent his whole life in prison for being a Catholic priest in communist Albania, to, as I said, Liam Brady in the dressing room, to Celtic, and then his career after Celtic that took him all around Europe. And now he's back at home in Glasgow, pally with the Albanian president who he went to school with. Unbelievable story. You know, from refugee to Scottish Cup winner. Unbelievable. The Rudi podcast is episode, I have to have a look, 33. Do yourself a favour. Give Rudi a listen. It's absolutely brilliant. Eddie's podcast is Another Look, 48, and David Potter's 32 and 51. So that's 4 good episodes for you to listen to. Don't say I don't give you anything. So, folks, what can I say? Only thanks very much if you stayed with us. If you didn't, you missed it. You missed some good stories. But look, tell your friends. Come back for the next episode. Listen to the podcast. Don't forget to buy the fanzine or a t-shirt. And we'll play out with The Fields of Athenry by the producer of the podcast, Ronan McQuillan, and his friends from around the globe. This was recorded for St. Patrick's Day. So take it away, Ronan. Thanks very much. Enjoy the match. Keep the faith. Stay safe. And let's get back to Glasgow as soon as possible.
By a lonely prison wall, I heard a young girl calling. Michael, they have taken you away, for you stole Trevelyan's court, so the young might see the Lord. Now the prison ship lies waiting in the bay. Low lie the fields of Athenry, where once we watched the small free birds fly. Our love was on the wing. We had dreams and songs to sing. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry. By a lonely prison wall, I heard a young man calling. Nothing matters, Mary, when you're free. Against the famine and the crown, I rebelled, they cut me down. Now you must raise our child with dignity. Low lie the fields of Athenry, where once we watched the small free birds fly. Our love was on the wing. We had dreams and songs to sing. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry. By a lonely harbour wall, she watched the last star falling. As the prison ship sailed out against the sky, for she lived in hope and prayed for her love in Botany Bay. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry. Low lie the fields of Athenry, where once we watched the small free birds fly. Our love was on the wing. We had dreams and songs to sing. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry.
I almost forgot, folks. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like, share, tell your friends. Give us a bit of promotion because it'll save us paying for promotion because we don't really have much money. So subscribe, follow, whatever you have to do. I'm new to this as well, but do what you have to do. And don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Thank you.